Hi, this is Jeremy, and in this video, we're going to be working through the exercises that go with the Math Antics video, AngleBasics. Are you ready? Here we go. Our first problem asks us, what kind of angle is this? And it shows us a diagram of an angle that's formed by two intersecting lines. Here's the point of intersection. And the thing to notice about this angle is it's got a square shape in the intersection that shows us that this is a right angle. A right angle. That means that these two lines intersect and are perpendicular to one another. And this square shape is the key here to know that it's a right angle. The next problem asks us, what kind of angle is this? And again, it shows us an angle formed by two intersecting lines. Now, if you remember from the last problem, we had a right angle. And a right angle, the lines are perpendicular. So if it were a right angle, it would go straight up like this. These lines would form a square corner. As you can see, this angle is bigger than that. So an angle that's bigger than a right angle is called an obtuse angle. Obtuse angle. It's bigger than a right angle. And the next problem asks us, what kind of angle is this? We have an angle here formed by two intersecting lines. Here's the point of intersection. And as you can see, if we had a right angle on here, right angle is perpendicular, it would be straight up like this. These lines would form a right angle, but these lines form something that is much less than a right angle. And an angle that's smaller than a right angle is called an acute angle, acute. So this angle here is an acute angle. And our next problem asks us again, what kind of angle is this? And it shows us a diagram that looks a lot like a straight line. You might not even realize it's an angle at first, except for this clue right here, this half circle or arc that shows us that this is an angle. It's formed by two rays that intersect at this point right here. One ray points in this direction, one ray points in this direction. Since they're in exactly opposite directions, this is what we call a straight angle. And our next problem is multiple choice. It wants us to tell what this diagram here shows. Our choices are parallel lines, perpendicular lines, supplementary angles, and complementary angles. Well, this is two angles here, so it's probably going to be one of these choices. These two angles combine to form a straight angle. You can see it down here along the bottom. And anytime angles combine to form a straight angle, we call them supplementary angles. Okay, our next problem is multiple choice also. We need to identify this diagram. Is it parallel lines, perpendicular lines, supplementary angles, or complementary angles? Well, these lines aren't forming any kind of angles because they don't intersect. So these two choices are out. So it's either parallel lines or perpendicular lines. Now, since these lines both go in the same direction and will never touch, these are called parallel lines. Our next problem is multiple choice and wants us to identify this diagram. Is it parallel lines, perpendicular lines, supplementary angles, or complementary angles? Well, this is a pair of angles, so that's a clue that it's going to be one of these two choices here. And these two angles combine to form a right angle. And anytime angles combine to form a right angle, they're called complementary angles. Our last problem is another multiple choice, and it wants us to identify this diagram. Our choices are parallel lines, perpendicular lines, supplementary angles, or complementary angles. Now these lines do intersect, and they form angles. In fact, it forms 4 right angles. And you can see that because these form square corners, and when lines intersect to form all square corners like this, they're called perpendicular lines.